Timothy Horgan, the chairman of the Stratford County General Government Subcommittee, which basically we're approving the budget for everything that's not law enforcement or healthcare. So I'll actually delve into healthcare a little bit, but we scheduled a meeting. Well, first of all, I say that's also available in Zoom, and I guess they want us to read the Zoom.
No, you don't have to read the Zoom part.
That's anybody who needs to know it, won't see it. Anybody who doesn't know it won't see it, but we are on that. We are on Zoom, and I don't know if anybody actually watching on Zoom. Okay. So I scheduled
anybody on Zoom.
No, I have one watching on YouTube feed.
Okay. I scheduled meeting of the subcommittee for Friday, February 17, 2023 at 9 a.m. So it's actually 9:04 by now, but close enough. And William A. Grimes Justice Administration Building Cafe Conference Room, lower level 259. County Farm Road, Dover, New Hampshire. This meeting is to review the following portion of the Stratford County Commissioners 2023 proposed budget. County Commissioners, Registry of Deeds, Medicaid costs, maintenance of the Justice Administration Building, is actually the campus in general. Portchester Cafe, who provided us with some snacks, various resource agencies, Cooperative Extension being the person who, and we'll hear from the Soil Conservation, Coast Transportation, Meals on Wheels, Easter Seal / Homemakers Home Health Services, interest on temporary loans, other accounts, which include county convention delegation, that's us. Employee appreciation, tuition assistance, contingency fund to general health insurance and for Justice Administration of Riverside Rest Home. This committee also reviews the Justice Administration capital expenditure items, non-Riverside Rest Home. And we have this agenda that goes all the way, theoretically, keep all the way to 21, but I think we're free to finish sooner than that if we get through everything to someone. And we're, of course, also we're free to finish later than that if we're getting really enthusiastic about it. But first, let's allegiance to the flag. Administrative powers leave it.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
One nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And now a moment of silence. I guess I'll be especially remembering our former colleague, even though he's from another county. I'm sure many of us knew him, Representative Gary Hopper, whose wake will be attending this afternoon if all goes according to plan. So a moment of silence. Okay, then. And roll call. So
Sandra's here. We can do that.
yeah, Cassandra was appointed Cassandra as our clerk and Ken and as the assistant clerk. So
Bixby?
we don't know yet. We think he's on his way.
And Conlon is excused. Granger. Corrigan,
That's me. I'm here.
Kaczynski,
Here.
Kenny's excused. And here. Cecilia Rich.
Here.
Jeffrey Rich
Here.
and Tchaikovsky is excused. That's 5.
We have several people listed here who are not members of the delegation. Peter Schmidt, Chairman Schmidt was going to come, but we had another meeting in Concord, so he's on the joint committee on. He's just one of the stalwarts of the joint legislative committee on administrative rules, which is very ominously known as jail cars. So I believe that's where he is. And Administrator Ray Bowers is here already. Administrative Assistant Janet Hilbert will be hearing from the Register of Deeds eventually, and we have a woman from the Cooperative Extension. So if you're first up, you may as well introduce yourself there.
Yes, I'm Caitlin Wallach with UNH Cooperative Extension. And thank you for having me today. So I'm here representing Cooperative Extension, the outreach branch of UNH in Stratford County. I personally am the county office administrator for Stratford County Extension and also the 4-H program manager for Stratford. So we are proposing the same amount from last year carrying on to this year, our $218. In Stratford County, we have our 4 program areas that are present, which is our 4-H and youth development, our natural resources, which is our county forester and natural resource field specialist. We have our food and agriculture field specialist. We have our health and well-being field specialist as well. And then along with our county staff, we also have our UNH staff in Durham, which gets included, but not counted into the budget amount. So we have our community and economic development staff that is there as well.
Very, very important, very important program. Does anybody have any members of the delegation have any questions at this point? No. I guess, yeah, my first term, we almost like eliminated our contribution to a budget crisis, but we didn't do it. So glad we brought you back. So extremely important program. It's worth keeping in place just to keep the 4-H going. Although, yeah.
Mr. Chairman, just a brief thing.
Please,
Well, the commissioners funded extension at their request,
Yes.
the amount that they requested. And you know that besides being the partner in all the counties, they're a statutory partner also.
Yes.
So, I mean, it's incorporated in the RSAs,
Yeah.
the affiliation between cooperative extension and the university and all the 10 counties.
Yes. I guess awkward silence here, but yeah, so that's and what was, so your budget request, I know it's just a fraction of your total. Tell us again, like what the total budget was there.
Yes, so our total, we have about 66% that comes from our state fund
Yep.
and from UNH, and then this is a percentage of our staff for the county that
Yeah.
is added into it. So all in all, it comes out about 30% of the
Yeah.
total budget.
Okay, great. Good idea. Where am I? I could have stuff your peak spec and see what's. Basic district.
Rami and they go on the matter. Yeah.
Find the where the stack of stuff you gave me, I could find the cooperative extension page right there. Yes.
Okay.
Resource.
Where this starts with the
My apologies. Yeah. I didn't memorize where everything was. So. Where goes where it is. Yes, you covered, so you covered, mostly got served 15,889 clients, all for Stratford County, and about the same amount of demand for your services. So you basically just, anyways, there's no significant change, basically just maintaining what you've been doing all this time, which is certainly worthwhile.
Each year, we've been seeing more growth in all of our program areas across the county as well, so.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
That's fine. Sorry, I didn't go a little bit more.
No, that's okay. I'm happy to answer any questions that
Okay.
you have.
Any more questions from the delegation? So, unfortunately, Resident Biscuit isn't here. He's ranking member in the Environment and Agriculture Committee. He's always extremely interested in what you're up to. But,
Yeah, and I will just mention that over the course of the last few years, especially with the response to COVID, we've been doing a lot of work in all of our program areas, really helping and assisting, whether it's small businesses on the Main Street front or our new businesses and farms that are starting in the area, really helping them get started, lower their costs, create the most revenue that they can, while also lowering their environmental impact as possible.
perfect. Here you go. Here comes Resident Bixby. So like,
Sorry, I'm a little late. I thought you were starting at 9:30.
I thought you're actually earlier. So we're doing the cooperative extension. I just mentioned that you're always especially interested in their activities because you're the ranking member in the Environment and Agriculture.
Yes.
So, probably haven't heard the presentation unless you were the one person watching on YouTube.
No, I don't watch YouTube right now.
No, I sometimes listen to it. But... Get her all set. So
All right, great. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Have a good rest.
Sorry, I didn't catch your presentation, but I'm sure it was good.
Yes, even though we're 5 minutes ahead of the allotted time, without objection, we'll be, I see Rad Nichols from Coast here, so let's,
Thank you very much.
fire away.
I'm Rad Nichols. I'm the Executive Director at Coast.
Yeah.
Thank you for the opportunity to come in this morning and speak about our request. And of course, I'm going to start talking now because I've started talking. I'm not sick, I just have dry throat.
Oh, it's fine.
So as an organization, we've continued to work to come out of the pandemic. And we continue to see sort of cyclical highs and lows. But most of our challenges, thank you. Most of our challenges this year were around workforce and securing enough commercially licensed operators to maintain our services. That is a nationwide issue. And we've certainly experienced it at Coast, and we're seeing the same thing in all of our sister agencies across the state as well. While we were temporarily forced to suspend some services on Route 33, which is the route that serves the county complex here, we did bring back most of the services that are operated on Monday through Friday in mid-October. And then as of mid-January, we brought back limited Saturday service, limited in that it doesn't cover the whole span of the day. It's in a compressed span. On Saturdays, however, the service does not come out to the county, and it hasn't given quite honestly a lack of need at that point. Based on the financial plan we developed as part of our comprehensive operations analysis, which we completed in 2020, and then our subsequent annual updates to our 5-year projections. We projected a need to increase municipal and county funding in fiscal year 23 by 15% overall. That varies by community or entity based on supply and demand. In the case of the county, we're asking for a 15.9% increase, and it's divided up in two ways. We're asking for $57,665 in support of our Route 33 and complementary ADA paratransit services, as well as $8,000 in support for the work of the Alliance for Community Transportation, which works to coordinate public transit and human services transportation in this part of the state, southeastern corner of the state. So overall, we're asking for a 15.9% increase over our fiscal year 22 ask, which was level with our ask in fiscal year 21. So no increase. I will say Route 33 is one of our best performing routes in terms of getting back to pre-pandemic ridership level. We're just under 100% of where we were in fiscal year 19 on the route. And wanted to note that the county's funding that you provide for both of the segments of our budget that we're asking for support or leverage significant sums of additional federal dollars that we can put to use. In the case of Route 33 and our ADA paratransit services, the $57,000 leverages another $134,000 of FDA funding. And on the ACT side, the Alliance for Community Transportation, the $8,000 leverages another $32,000 of funding from the FDA. Key stop locations on Route 33 continue to be here across the street, downtown Dover, and the Dover dialysis center. So I'm happy to answer any questions, folks.
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to highlight the importance of our relationship with Ghost. For all of the county clients that come to the courthouse, many of them have a difficulty in transportation and getting here, which would include the clients that work with our community corrections, drug court, and also Coast does provide the transportation here, which does empower or enable some people to visit family members at Riverside when they might have other difficulty in getting transportation. So when we asked Coast to develop this route, it was with the idea that when we did a community survey, we found one of the more difficult situations was getting people here. And so, you know, we were happy to support their request for continued service at the level at which they're requesting.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
also at some point in the future, if Green goes through, and I have a homeless center here,
Yes, oh, yeah.
and that's gonna be really vitally important for people to be able to use that to get to wherever their people need to
Oh,
go.
yes, I agree. And then also, then even the new nursing home, which, well, still at least 2 or 3 years down the road, but it's because we think ahead to the future.
Yes.
They'll also have a
So,
lot more programming that Riverside has.
I don't know if there's a future plan for any of that and coming time with.
Yes. Good point. Representative Bixby.
Yeah, I was wondering if the issue with being able to hire drivers is a matter of not being competitive wage-wise, or if it's just that there just aren't enough people with CDLs.
Historically, we have been sort of in the lower middle range of wages. We did in our fiscal year 23 budget, which started in October, we did announce that starting January 1, we would have significant pay increases for our frontline staff. And so a CDL operator now starts at Coast just over $25 an hour. And if you work second shift, we introduced a second shift differential, so you're at $27 an hour to start. That has made a significant difference, and we are one or two individuals shy of where we hoped to be at this point, which is a whole lot better than we've been for the last 5 or 6 years. Where that has made a significant difference. And the key will be whether or not we can keep up with sort of the private sector folks that we're competing with for those scarce individuals, and they are scarce. There are not a lot of new entrants coming into, driving commercially for a career. And so we're all basically fighting for the same dwindling pool of what tend to be older individuals in the workforce.
Are you having any trouble keeping incumbent drivers able to meet the license requirements? I know I speak from personal experience. About 20 years ago, I got a CDLB because I was working for Wildcat Transit, routes interface with yours, and you work very closely with them. And then eventually I was having trouble. I failed the blood pressure test a few years ago, and then correct me if I don't, I can make $27 an hour driving a coach bus. After my legislative duties, maybe I might have worked harder. Might have placed more emphasis on keeping my medical card up to date. But do you have any? So you have any trouble?
Absolutely. The ability to maintain a medical card is increasingly challenging. As there's an increased emphasis on safety of the folks behind the wheel of commercial vehicles. The other thing that I would say is increasingly challenging are the new rules around commercial operator licensing that went into effect in February of 22. There just are a lot more hoops to jump through now. I'm not saying that they're bad, there's just a lot more hoops. And so it costs more to get your commercial driver's license unless you're being sponsored by someone.
Yeah.
So
that was okay. Representative Krasinski.
Has there been any increase in ridership corresponding to the increase in spending?
Yes, we're seeing increased ridership year over year. I will say this year, it did slow over what we've been experiencing as we come out of the pandemic, mostly because we had to suspend services because of our workforce shortage, but we are increasing year over year. Absolutely. I would say too, the inflationary pressures that everyone is experiencing we're experiencing those in transportation quite acutely. Price of fuel was one.
I understand I'm in transportation. I'm a CDLA myself, and I think the regulation is a problem, over-regulation. If you go on over-regulation, this is the result.
It's more challenging. It's certainly.
One thing for a lot of people see your buses who aren't actually riding in them because they can, in the bus wrap, you can turn your bus to a rolling billboard. Is that a significant source of revenue, or?
It is a significant source of revenue for us, and at Coast, we've done exceptionally well with that revenue source. We'll probably be somewhere around $175,000 in sales this year. We had a record year last year, and it is an important revenue source for us.
Oh, thank you. Yes.
I have another question.
Yes.
About the parking lots. Yes, they're free.
Oh, park and ride lots?
Yes, yes.
Yes.
Uh, Is there any plans or anything to charge for any of that? And would that be a
So,
dumb question, but
no, it's not a dumb question.
That
So
would be revenue.
that coast doesn't have anything to do with that. We do service the state park and ride lots in the region, all three of them. Oh, well, three of the main ones, along Spalding Turnpike or I-95 in Portsmouth. The one in Portsmouth is managed by C&J Trailways, or sorry, not C&J Trailways, C&J Transportation.
No,
The one in Dover, I think is still managed by C&J. The one in, Rochester is, I believe, managed by the state. We have, I'm not sure where the P3 process is relative to the potential for Portsmouth to be part of a P3 agreement with the state. That had been moving ahead prior to the pandemic and then was scrapped, I believe, or paused. I think there's some new movement on that, but I don't know anything about efforts to potentially charge for the state park and ride use.
thank you.
great, thanks. See no further questions, I guess, it's good to go. Did you ride your own bus over here today or not?
No, I'm afraid I did not leave enough time.
Oh, that's okay.
So, but thank you very much. Appreciate
Okay,
it.
thank you. 10 minutes ahead of schedule, like, and the next up is, because we're 9:40 is the County Conservation District. Is he here? There's he. Oh, there's-
Do you wanna get up and take a break? Would you like me to go?
Oh, we can take a break if we prefer, or.
No, I'm happy to go, but you were getting up, so I didn't know if you were ready. Oh, sorry. Okay.
My script said it was Alina Warren was coming, or apparently here.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm Vicki Nelson. I actually work at the Rockingham County Conservation District, but I'm filling in for Elena Warren, who's the district manager here in Stafford County while she is on maternity leave.
Oh, congratulations to her.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, she had her second. Yeah, she's doing well.
I'm good, but
So-
it'll be a space in the future, so yeah.
Thanks. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. Just a quick background, the conservation districts all over New Hampshire were created around and all over the country were created around the time of the Dust Bowl to support locally led soil conservation. And now we still work a lot with farmers and with soil, and we also do a lot of grant funded projects, educational events, a plant sale, easement stewardship. So we have a variety of activities that we work on today. The county budget is very important. It's a really vital piece of our of the way that we leverage other grants. So we have competitive grant funding from federal and state sources, but the opportunity to provide stability to the program and to give us the opportunity to leverage those grant funds is really important to us. So we appreciate the support in the past. Anyone have any? That was a quick overview.
Yeah.
Does anyone have any specific questions?
Oh, there you go. Representative Jeffrey, Rich.
Yeah, yes, I'm just wondering, I remember a while ago, we had all this water problems in Greenland and River County. How did that all happen with taking the people that had owned those dumps, everything that was polluting everything? You know, what happened with that for getting some money towards the cleanup of all the sites? And it's okay if you don't.
No, I don't. I'm not sure the districts were specifically involved in that particular issue.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
oh, it's okay. Thank you.
What's your role in that? Oh, I'll let Ray basically go first.
Yeah, so, I was at the NOFA New Hampshire conference this past weekend and, there was someone from Cheshire County there who mentioned that, there's grant funding that they've gotten to help farmers with landowners with various projects on their farms. And among those, it sounded like there was access that some of that was being made available for doing energy infrastructure. And is that a federal grant or is that money that's coming from another source? And how easy is it for them to access that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So this project was, it's private dollars. It came through the New Hampshire Charitable Foundation. And it's Cheshire County has been managing it, but all the funds are statewide. So all the counties have been able to access these funds. We just did a recent grant round. Every county had $30,000 to give out to the farms, and it was it was an application process. We sent out postcards to all our farms so they knew about the opportunity. We sent out emails to our mailing lists, did some advertising on social media. So we're trying to make sure that all the farmers were aware of this opportunity, and then they filled out, the grant application, and it was competitive. We had more applications than we had funding. So we had to make some hard decisions about that, but we were able to distribute all $30,000.
So there also exists money at the federal level, I think through the REAP program, the Rural Energy Assistance Program, which is run out of it's run out of the office in Burlington for New Hampshire and Vermont. And I was wondering if I took a look at what someone who was applying for that needed to do to the application process, and it looked like the sort of thing where a farmer with half a dozen employees is just not going to have the time to do that, but a small business of like $50 million would be able to like put a full-time person on doing that grant application. I'm wondering if there are any way that the conservation districts could help our farmers with trying to get at that money.
Yeah, certainly the barrier to federal dollars can be challenging, and we see that with the NRCS too. And that was certainly the goal of this project, was to have a much simpler, more readily available application process. Do the districts help farmers through that process? I don't know that we've really dug into that.
Is that something that you could conceivably take on, or would that be a better role for, say, cooperative extension?
That's a great question. Certainly some of the districts have done that a little bit with NRCS. Not necessarily the program that you've mentioned, but certainly some of the districts can act as like a program assistant for NRCS, which would help, which would be interfacing with farmers, helping them through that process. So it's certainly a possibility, but we haven't explored that yet.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
What is your role in maintaining soil maps, which I know, at least in my town of Durham, that's always a big issue. Every development project, we're always worrying about the soil and the water runoff and all the soil types. And then get very fine-grained discussions over those. So like, what is your role in like maintaining that data?
Sure. A lot of soil mapping data right now is held online through Web Soil Survey. And NRCS does a lot of managing of that data. So we I don't know that we've done one recently in Stratford County, but some districts do hold like Web Soil Survey classes to help citizens understand the mapping. Something we could also look into. We haven't done one recently. But mostly the mapping is sort of held in that
Okay, thank you, yeah. Another thing is, of course, you do this in Rockingham, County, truthfully, you rent out a variety of equipment that's useful for a farmer, but not affordable for like a small farmer to own on their own, but so, what, see if anything?
Yeah,
That's going.
absolutely. It's a very popular program. We've grown it over the past 5 or 6, 7 years now. So yeah, it started with just 1 or 2 pieces of equipment and now, goodness, there's probably 6 or 7 now. So this is a low cost rental to farmers. It really, the purpose for charging is just to cover the maintenance of the equipment. So this would be a really good example of where the county dollars are used to cover the staff time to manage that rental program. So certainly, these are, $20,000 pieces of equipment that a small farm would not be able to purchase, and maybe they're using it once every year, or once every 2 or 3 years, so they don't really need to own it. So we have it and they can rent it. So yeah, that's been a very successful program, and farmers are very, very happy with it.
All right, thanks.
So do you also do consultations with landowners, whether a farmer or not, in terms of soil improvement to reduce runoff and et cetera?
Yeah, absolutely. We've done a handful of, we would go to different towns and like their libraries would sponsor this with us, and we would do like a soil health for landowners, right? So anyone who had a garden or, wanted to manage or a field in a different way. So we've done those presentations and offered that anyone who had more questions could follow up with us.
And is there a sort of a minimum lot size where that makes sense to do with?
Yeah, I mean, we are not like overrun with this question right now, so we haven't had to turn people away. I imagine if we, I don't know, I don't imagine that it would be so unmanageable, but yeah, so right now we have enough time to manage those questions.
Thank you.
Mhm.
And seeing no more questions, I guess you're free to get back to Brentwood or wherever you came from. I always know I'm halfway home when I see the Buckingham County Soil Conservation District on the town line in Northwood. I guess there must be another one for Stratford County, but
Yeah, going the other way, yeah.
yes,
Well, thank you very much. We appreciate your time.
all right, great. We have the Meals and Wheels is next on the agenda. Is there anybody ride through here? Meals? I guess, okay, that's like,
Running a little late.
I guess we'll like recess until like move on to the Meals and Wheels unless there's.
If you'd like, Mr. Chairman, I could take up some of
Okay,
this time
good idea.
to go over some of the ones that I know are incumbent upon me to answer.
Oh, okay.
And I'll pick the ones that are obviously quicker
Yeah.
or
Oh, that's good.
likely to generate less questions,
All right.
just as an offer. One of those would be Medicaid costs. You see that's about even. So just so you know how that's determined, it's probably the one largest item impacting the tax rate.
Yes.
You all set that in the legislature, and our share of that is a rolling 3-year average. So the number of people who are in nursing homes or who receive home and community-based care, we pay the non-federal share. The federal share is 50%. We pay the vast majority of the non-federal share. the state does contribute some small amount of money. I believe it's about $123-4 million statewide. Our shares right around $11 million. Last year, you all were very helpful in keeping that at a 2% increase. In fact, you built that 2% increase into statute. In the governor's proposed budget, he stayed within that 2% in his proposal. Although because our numbers are down, the you know, on a 3-year rolling average, our request is about flat.
Good, and I see you're right on it to the pennies. You're doing a great job of administering it. It's not that there's.
Well, it's, you know, it's not as, it's, over the years, we've simplified the process. So we've come to an agreement with the state with the rolling 3-year average that amount tends to be, you know, on target. So, not in 2022, but in past years, we've kind of audited that and it looks like it's right on target. In the past, we used to have a whole little department of 3 people that used to simply check the bills. We've eliminated that department and just gone with a 1/12, you know, once per month payment. And when we've audited that internally, we found that any errors in there or any differences in there, I shouldn't say errors, any differences in there, nowhere came close to what we were paying a 3-person department. You know, some years we might have gotten a little less, some years we might have gotten a little more, but in no way did it ever equal the cost of actually auditing every single person. So you'll see that it's about a flat amount for this year. And we have no choice, you know, we have to pay the bill.
It looks like we're just paying for the long-term care. So if we add anything else to Medicaid, which I guess is being considered in the budget prices, that doesn't affect this bottom line.
It does not, by statute, unless you change the statute. You know, the statute right now says it's nursing home care, Medicaid nursing home care, as well as a home and community-based care. So these are people that would medically qualify to be in a nursing home, would financially qualify to be in a nursing home, but don't quite need the services that are provided in a nursing home and can be cared for at home. Sometimes with the assistance of family, sometimes on their own, and they don't quite need the services in the nursing home. So obviously that's a program that we want to promote as much as we possibly can with the demographics of what's going to happen in Stratford County with the number of people that are 65 and over and 85 and over in the next 15-20 years. We really need to promote home care as much as possible.
Yes, Jeffrey Ray.
Yes, the cost of the HICPIC program,
That's home and community-based care for the chronically ill and elderly.
how does that compare monetarily to the nursing home?
It's a little deceptive to compare it because the contribution level is different. So when you come into a nursing home and you qualify for Medicaid, all of your income, Social Security, retirement, if you have it, all goes to the nursing home. And then Medicaid pays the difference between your daily rate and that amount of money. With home and community-based care, you obviously have what you might contribute is at least is based on what it costs you to maintain your home. So in some cases, it's you're comparing apples and oranges. You don't have exact amount, but I would say 2 to 1, at the least, maybe 3 to 1 between. I'd say my best estimate is between 2 and 3 to 1. So in other words, it's between a third to 50% less burden on the system
Yes.
to keep someone at home.
Okay, and then my final question I have is, people in their homes, now how does that work? Is there a lien put on if they
No, not to the best of my knowledge. There is, well, I have to separate that. If you have, if you own a home and you're the sole proprietor of that home, then yes, the answer is, Medicaid will expect you to sell that home, under the current system. Until you sell that home, you can go on Medicaid. When you sell that home, Medicaid expects, what they do is you convert to paying for yourself, private pay. If you should pass away, before, if you exhaust the value of the home, okay, what you receive, then you can go back on Medicaid. If you should pass away, and there's still money available, Medicaid will go after that money.
Gotcha. Perfect, thank you.
I think that's actually the biggest line item in the entire county budget, actually.
Well, it's certainly the one, it's certainly almost a third of what we raise by taxes, not quite. Yeah, it's around, I'm doing the math in my head, it's around 30% of what we raise by taxes.
Very good.
Sort of a sneaky way of paying for Medicaid through property tax, or I guess there's a little bit more to it.
Well, I think it's a little more than that.
Yeah.
I think a piece of it too is the fact that, you know, the county is also a provider. Now, this $11 million, and I'm rounding that number off, that I'm talking about certainly doesn't all go to Riverside Rest Home. It goes to every nursing home that, where prior to admission to that nursing home, the person has lived in Stratford County. Stratford County has a number of elderly housing complexes, both in Dover, Somersworth, and Rochester. And because of that, you know, we have a little larger number of people that, you know, are attracted to those metropolitan areas, no matter where they lived before. And they're attracted to those elderly housing complexes, which adds to the population of Medicaid eligible people. Other counties, more rural counties, and counties that aren't as condensed, you know, Stratford County is the smallest, physically the smallest county. That also is you know, so we get a little larger percentage of people who might live somewhere else in the county and apply for housing, sometimes in all three places. And wherever they're eligible, you know, they might come up next in eligibility, they'll go to that. So the people that live in housing in Dover aren't necessarily from Dover, you know, prior to being admitted to that housing.
It is one of those things where, wherever the eligibility is, wherever there's room.
That's exactly correct, sir.
Yes.
Thank you, Administrator. So. You still don't have anyone from Meals and Wheels here?
So, to
Okay.
follow up one more time. So was there some point at which the county was not raising all of this through property tax, or was this, has just been this way forever?
No, there, a number of years ago, so during my tenure, so certainly within the last 35 years, I'd say it's probably within the last 20 years. In the past, the county used to pay for a portion of 4 state-funded programs. Medicaid was one of them, but we would only pay 25%. But in the effort to eliminate the administrative costs of running and checking those programs, the counties made a deal with the state, and we said, listen, we would like to disband the necessity of checking every bill that comes in. And when you have 4 different programs, it becomes more complicated than just one program. So what we did was, we eliminated that department, and in turn eliminated 3 of the 4 programs and only focused on funding Medicaid. It was also easier for us to work with the legislature to cap the amount of the county's contribution. As I mentioned earlier, Health and Human Services wanted us to increase 18% last time. Through the legislative process, we got it down to 2%. And 2% for the last state fiscal year and the current state fiscal year. So it was easier for us to manage the cost of working with the legislature to manage the cost of one program. And we also didn't have to have a department of 3 people to check all the bills. So it was in everybody's financial interest. Because remember what if we checked a bill and somebody, their home of origin wasn't in our county before they were eligible for those services, it simply meant that another county got billed. And that other county might have found somebody that was from Stratford County and we got the bill. And so it drove everybody kind of crazy, including the state, who was constantly moving these bills around, crediting these accounts. We had 3 people doing it. Every county probably had, well, a county like Hillsborough, Rockingham probably had 5 or 6 people doing it. And the state had a number of people doing it. And it really, George McGlaris, our chairman of our commissioners, said, this makes no sense. You know, why are we wasting this administrative money? You know, when the system could be much simpler and the money that was spent could be focused on the services instead of checking the bills. So we, I think it was, I think it was approximately 1990. So yes, we've always been responsible. It's just a larger amount now that we pay for, and we don't pay for board and care of children, which is the juvenile piece. We don't pay for old age assistance, and we don't pay for the aid to the totally and permanently disabled. Now, I want to stop there, and you guys need to give me credit that I remembered all those things from 20 years ago.
All right. Well, that's pretty.
Those were the other 3 programs besides the Medicaid program that we paid for back then.
Simon, I'm lucky to remember that much detail from yesterday.
Yeah, I you know. When you live with those bills every month, wondering what the amount is going to come in because there's no cap. And you hope and pray that you came to the delegation for the right sum of money without any assurances at the beginning of the budget process that those numbers are going to be correct. Because you could have different numbers of people on the program. At least now with Medicaid, it's a rolling 3-year cap. So you're not going to find a year in which you go way up or way down. You know, averages out over 3 years, which is part of also what we negotiated. I noticed Meals on Wheels is present,
Okay,
Mr. Chair.
Well, there we go. Yes, come on in. Very good. Just sat here all along and we practice.
Lori Duff is joining the Zoom people this morning.
Okay.
What would you like me to be? Okay, thanks.
If I could start just 1 second,
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman. Stratford County is committed to supporting Meals on Wheels at their request. An amount, we feel that they are an integral part of keeping people at home
Oh, yeah.
and delaying or totally stopping nursing home placement. Also, and I don't want to steal any of your thunder
That's
here.
fine.
I do want to mention that they're also have this, they develop these relationships with the people that they deliver meals to and have been a constant source of reporting medical concerns that they observe in their clients that they deal with, especially when they live alone, to help get them the proper medical attention. All of those things are key to keeping people out of nursing homes.
Great. How much are we asking them for? What you're giving them or?
A relatively insignificant amount compared to what they do for us, in my opinion, in my humble opinion. But it is the amount that they requested.
Yeah. Yeah, we did request an increase to 42,000 this year, from 36 last year. Like, I'm probably preaching to the choir here. We all know that things have been really chaotic with costs, labor markets, everything. And so like everybody, we're, working hard to stay afloat and be there for everybody. As he was just explaining that, we're more than just a meal service, which is critical in itself to a lot of people. We are about trying to keep them safely in their homes as long as they can be. So yes, like for example, in reference to what he talked last week, we had a delivery person who arrived at a house and the person in the wheelchair had fallen out of the wheelchair, so that driver stayed with them, called 911, helped get them assistance. We don't allow them to do it because they could do it in a way that could hurt the individual. They're not medically trained, but they stay with them, give them comfort while we wait for 911 to come there and help. We also do what we refer to them as wellness checks. So if years ago, Meals on Wheels programs ran strictly off volunteers. Some still try to do that. But the problem with that, in my opinion, is that continuity you need. You need to have that person that can look at Mrs. Smith today, and then tomorrow, the next day, when they go and say, oh, she's usually dressed, she's usually chipper, she's usually whatever. See those mild changes that can mean something's building. And so then we can reach out to their family or whoever their emergency contact, try to preempt it before it becomes a crisis situation. So there's a lot of little elements like that we try to incorporate. So it's more, like I said, about keeping them healthy and safe in their homes as much as possible. We are I'm the current chair for the national, for Meals on Wheels New Hampshire. And as a collective group, we are trying to continually advocate because we're seeing potential risk factors by 2025 if some additional funding doesn't come into all our services. It's just the numbers have been growing, the costs have been growing, everything, and it's becoming a little more difficult. I myself, just this past year, had between the cost of supplies, food and everything, had a 29% increase in my expenses. That is like very difficult to take. Hopefully we can weather it, and we're gonna continue to plug. But I would love to address questions. I can talk more. I do have a handout I'm gonna leave for you, which just gives some basic facts.
Yeah.
One of the things that confuse people sometimes is Meals on Wheels as an agency provides the same services, but there's different pots of money we try to draw in. So there's different criteria. So we have what we call home delivered that falls under a certain criteria. We have Title 20 home delivered that are people that are means tested and things like that. So just to help explain that, I will leave that here for you guys.
Anybody have any questions? Good.
Do you coordinate with other, like Gather?
To a degree, we try to as much as we can with other agencies. One of the challenges that can be is that, like, for example, I'm serving about 650 people a day. The menu has to be designed to meet the standards of people 60 and older, approved by the state. So sometimes getting like food from food banks and stuff, that isn't feasible because you can't get the quantities, you can't get the food you need that's been approved by the menu. So like right now, I just had the state just approved the March menu. So all that food has to be prepared as on that menu and as it met the nutrition advice. So sometimes that's a little challenging. What we have done though is like, let's say somebody's eligible for like food bank food. We have been a conduit to get it to them and stuff like that, things like that. So we try to help them in a different way. But as for us using any kind of food like that, it's kind of challenging. It doesn't always work, unfortunately. Yeah.
Follow-up?
Yeah, if you had, do your meals have to account for various dietary restrictions? For instance, do you have to have a set of low salt meals and, that sort of
As
thing?
much as the agency can afford, we try to do specialized. Basically, this agency, because of budgetary restrictions, tries to err on the low end. So we already keep our meals at the low salt level, figuring that people can add salt for taste if they want and stuff like that. It does require some education of some clients, because they'll be like, well, this is bland. I'm like, well, we're making like a meal that 650 people hopefully can eat. So just add a little flavoring that you're comfortable with to, enhance it and stuff. We do offer things like ground and parade, the texture things that people can't modify themselves. So we do offer that stuff, but we don't necessarily do, like someone recently asked for a gluten-free diet and things like that. It's not in our realm. Like I said, we're also trying to get like 650 meals out a day. You're packaging up, you're trying to, drivers taking different places. It's a little hard to coordinate too many specialities there.
Yeah, that was, I was guessing that might be a challenge.
Yeah.
We have to manage people's expectations. Sometimes you can't custom make every. meal.
Exactly. But we do try, like menu planning, for example, we tried to offer a variety, because some people are like fish and potato people. Some people might have an ethnic background and like, I don't know, not tacos, but something of that nature, or some people, so we try to mix it up all the time. So hopefully during the week, there's at least a couple meals you really like, and then some you just, oh, okay, they were okay, I ate them, I needed to eat them, but it's not my favorite, like fish is another one that's a love-hate. Some really want it, could have it every day, others don't want it every day. Could care less if it's on there. But other questions?
I'd be happy to take some fish.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, this year asking for 42,000. What's your total budget there?
My total budget right now is 1.2. Okay, wait a minute.
$1,178,006.
Oh, sorry, excuse me, yes. I'm getting-
I just happen to have the right
I'm
page.
like, it's here somewhere, but I'm like,
So, follow?
Yes.
I seen these cash accounts, operating account 544,000. Reserve 426,000. What's that reserve account?
because what has happened, well, first of all, when I came here in 2017, this program had basically enough money, maybe to survive another 3 to 6 months. So I have been working very hard getting grants and stuff to build us reserve. When you have things like sequestration happen, we can go months without any money coming in from our contracts. So you have to be able to survive. So the board and I determined that we needed to come up with about 6 months of operating funds to sustain us when we have those lulls and things. Like I said, literally, I was brought in kind of to save the program because it was near closing when I came on board. They were actually taking loans out for payroll.
Yeah.
So that was not a way to operate.
So, Western Civil, like we would, federal debt crisis goes sideways as it might, so I expect we probably won't, the reserve account will help you keep operating until they sort that out in DC.
Exactly. There's moments like that. There's also, like I said, we're all running. We've had some additional support the last couple of years because of opera and stuff like that. That's part of the reason, like I spoke last year with the group, that I was getting desperate for labor. I did have to raise my labor costs up from $8 an hour to $12 an hour to get people in. Right now, because of that, I've been able to sustain it. But in the long run, there's gonna be challenges, and that's where we're talking in 2025, it's gonna be a little problematic if things go as it appears. So, does that help address your question? Have you heard?
No, it was, I mean, how long have you been doing this with a reserve account like that?
We've been building it since I came here in 2017. So like I said, in 2017, we had $20,000 to our name.
It seems like there's a lot of money.
Well, like I said, I have had grants, I've had successes with, frankly, with a decent amount of grants, but they're one-time things, and which is one of the problems, because what will happen over time is you don't keep getting those, it's been because of COVID that we've had some great successes there. Yes, sir.
So, I think another factor there would probably be, if you have to pay your suppliers immediately.
Correct.
So, there's often a certain amount of lag between when money comes into your accounts
Exactly.
and when you have to pay your suppliers. If you don't pay your suppliers, you can't continue to get the food to
Yeah.
feed people.
Yeah.
So having that reserve gives you a time buffer so that if your revenues don't come in immediately, then you can still pay your suppliers.
Exactly. Like for right now, for example, I don't know if you would have heard of the NISSIP funding, but it's an additional funding we get. We are 6 months behind from the state. The state hasn't paid it up, so it's a lot of lag like that, like you're talking about. And that's what put this program at risk at closing, because they had no buffer to coordinate that, and that's why they were constantly taking out loans to meet weekly bills and then have to keep replenishing in it. And it was eventually going to pretty much mean the program would have to close its doors.
And of course, those loans have interest, which makes them more expensive than having a reserve.
Exactly.
Right, Representative Kaczynski.
Not to belabor this, but your operating account is $544,000. I mean,
It was at that time. What period of time did I have to go? Was this October?
like, a few bucks in there to be paying your normal operating expenses.
Right, but basically the board and I had put together about 6 months worth. So it's about 1/6 of that would be what would cost us around a month. So,
Oh, I understand what you're saying, but it seems like this.
Well, I think that really is a credit to your grant raising successes that that's as sound as it is, and you know that you are asking the county for a relatively small portion of what.
yeah, and what I've been trying to educate our board on, and maybe I need to try to educate the public a little more on. Yes, I've had some good success, but I've been doing this since 1988. The success I've seen the last couple of years is not normal. It's driven by people being empathetic with the COVID scenario. In general, I always think of grant writing sort of like an actor going for a role. You go for a dozen, you're lucky if you ever get one.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I have, and the board thinks my board thinks I'm phenomenal, but I keep trying to make them understand it's because the window I walked into, it's just a matter of time that things are gonna not be as successful.
Yeah.
So I guess what I was pointing out was that you've had that good success in recent years.
Yeah.
But it's not something that, because grants are one-time funding, it's not a.
You can't budget
It's
off it.
not a sustainable.
Yeah.
Long-term plan. It is, okay, we're good right now. We aren't gonna fall off a cliff next year,
Right,
but we better not, risk that by saying, oh, we're flush, we don't need to ask for more money.
right, and that we're done and it's, yeah, we can just coast the rest. No, because it's not, and you can't, like, for example, planning wages and things like that, or even the number of meals you're gonna serve next year. When you can't know you're gonna get another grant, you can't really factor that in fully. It's more like I said, contingency reserve, if the money doesn't come in for operating.
We can really keep those meals rolling in.
We're trying. But thank you for the questions, and if you guys have any more, we appreciate what you're doing, and we're willing for us, and we're willing to come back and address it.
Okay, great.
Okay?
Yes. So being able to pay the suppliers is important, but supply chain getting a little bit more unpredictable.
Well, it was really, one piece I'll just add in, like a while there, I wasn't putting menus out for our clients because I couldn't predict the stuff, and we're struggling with the state because we had to keep sending amended menus for their approval. It was just with the, so that's somewhat leveled up.
Clients must have hated that.
Yeah, they didn't like that. They kept asking for menus.
Yeah, thank you. All right, thank you.
All right, thank you guys
Thank you.
very much.
Easter seals and homemakers.
They're on the.
Okay. Here we are. I'm Representative Timothy Horgan. I'm the chair of the General Government Subcommittee, as you know. So we have 5 other members of the committee here on the Zoom, and most point Representative Administrator Bowers. I almost gave him a demotion there, but no, Administrator Bowers.
I'll mean anything about it.
Yeah, so. So I guess fire away, tell us.
Mr. Chairman, could I just start for a second?
Yeah.
You know, we feel our relationship with Easter Seals and homemakers is critical. As important or close to as important as Meals on Wheels to keeping people at home,
Oh, of course.
is services that are provided by homemakers. So I just wanted to say that.
Thank you. And we had a crisis a few years ago and they saved us, so that's good too. Right. So,
Thank you. Thank you. So I'm sorry I can't be in person this morning. I apologize for that. I don't like doing this by Zoom, but thank you for an alternative method here. Thank you, Mr. Bauer, for your comments. And yeah, so my name is Laurie Duff, and I thank you for your continued support. I thank you for the opportunity to come before you this morning. So we are Homemakers and Health Services coming to you today as a program of Easter Seals. We have, as you're familiar maybe with the Day Out program, we are currently serving people who either can't be or shouldn't be or don't want to be left home alone during the day. They are typically older adults. Our average age is in the high 70s, and they come and they spend the day with us, and we have nursing, we have meals right now are actually being provided by Jamie through the Meals on Wheels program. So we're delighted about that. And it's really, really good food. A little plug for her there. And so we provide transportation for folks to come to the day to the program. It gives them an opportunity to continue to live in their community and stay at home with their families, or to sleep in their own bed at night, which is a great option for them. We have folks that have been with us in the day program for 20 plus years. And again, as was commented earlier, basically keeping them out of long-term care and having their long-term care be at home. And then, of course, we also provide homemaking services, as well as personal care services, home health services, and nursing services at home for individuals. Right now, we served 1,279 individuals in the last 12 months. And of that, 309 were from Stratford County. So that's 24%. We provided over $316,000 in uncompensated care for Stratford County clients. Our highest funder for either of those programs is Choices for Independence, which is the Medicaid program. And we also receive funding from Title 20 from the state of New Hampshire as well for low-income individuals. So the funds that we are asking for will be used to provide care for low-income seniors whose cost of services is not reimbursable through insurance or any other funding stream. We currently serve all 12 communities. We serve residents in all 12 communities. We continue to struggle with the workforce, as maybe you've heard already, or from others earlier today, or you will hear, or you just know in general, hearing about the direct care workforce out there. We have a waiting list of approximately 75 people for our services. And we just can't get enough staff in the door. We have an older workforce that is stepping out, and we need to get more folks stepping in. We've, like many organizations, have tried everything you can think of for recruitment, and we will continue to do so. I would say that, like like my comment about the older adults that we serve, having been in service for 20+ years, same with staff. We have had staff with us for that long as well, direct care staff. And that is, that's a testament to loving what they do. And also being treated as part of the families that they're serving. So a lot of our families, a lot of the seniors that we serve in their homes don't have families, and we are their family. So that is, and it's approximate cost of about $5,000 per individual per year to continue to serve them with our programs. And I would say also that there is a lot of advocacy going on at the state level for the reimbursement rate for Medicaid in order to, because the higher rates of pay that we give to our direct care workforce, which is vital for us to not only keep them, but to pay them what they're worth, which is much more than what we're paying them now. But the more that we pay them, the closer the gap is with the reimbursement rate of Medicaid. So we are trying to advocate for a higher reimbursement rate. We have also, as Jamie mentioned, with the ARPA funds, we have been fortunate to receive ARPA funds and pass that right on to our employees in the way of bonuses and rate changes and so forth. And then I would also say that the funding ask that we asked for this year doesn't include the variety of services that we provide to this county in the way of military and veteran services, our services for intellectual and developmental services, as well as our services for young adults. Many of you are aware that we're hoping for a move-in this summer to the Champlin Place, the 65-unit low-income housing for older adults. We have 92 people on our pre-application wait list, so we're very excited about that. So that's my spiel. So what questions do you have for me?
I thought they'd wait for the chair to recognize me, but I'm the chair, so
Thank you.
When I first, especially mentioned, like many of your direct care workers have been there 20 years or more, so you're having an issue. Is it fair to say that many of the people in your workforce are almost in the same bracket, or maybe even in the same bracket as the people they're serving?
Correct. Ironically, there have been a few people that have crossed over from staff to client, and we're, it's great to be able to serve them. But yeah, we do have an older workforce that is working themselves out of a job. And so it has been challenging getting younger blood in because it's a difficult it's a difficult job. So
24% of the clients are from Stratford County. So what's the rest of your catchment area? So where the other 76% living?
Yep. So I would say the other large areas would be Manchester, the Manchester-Nashua area, and Concord, and then the Belknap area. So we serve.
You cover the whole state then?
I wouldn't say, I don't like to say the host state, because when you get up at Coas County, that's territory up there that is not known to us. So.
Thank you, Reverend Bixby.
Yeah, so I just wanted to get a little clarification on the Medicare rates and what you're able to pay people. If you're not able to actually hire people for what Medicare gives you, are you finding yourself having to supplement the salary wage costs from other funding? Or are you just stuck only being able to pay the Medicare rate no matter what?
Yeah, so I would just make a slight correction that it's actually Medicaid, not Medicare, but that's okay. Everyone mixes those up. So yeah, the current Medicaid rate for a particular service is $22 an hour. And we are paying our workforce, depending on what they're doing for a job, anywhere from $14 to $16 per hour. And so sometimes that's when those people have to go on the wait list because we don't have, because staff, so what we're seeing is we're seeing younger direct care, younger workforce come in, and they're expecting to be paid $18, $20, $22, $23 an hour, which is what they're getting in the hospitals. And what they're getting in, some of those organizations that can bill for Medicare, which is a much higher rate. So we are losing some of our younger workforce to hospitals, to those organizations that are able to pay and don't depend on Medicaid like we do, because 75% of our business is Medicaid, is low income. So it's tricky. So I don't know if that answers your question or not, but we are, given the fact that we are 75% Medicaid, we are dependent on the funds that, on how they reimburse us currently. Does that make sense?
So there's not, there's essentially not another funding source you could use to supplement the Medicaid if the Medicaid isn't sufficient.
Correct. So what I would say is, to that, so the deficit, the uncompensated care, right? So the uncompensated rate is what we're asking for here today. And then we try, we do have Title 20 monies, but Title 20 monies cannot be used if someone is on Medicaid. So it's kind of like double dipping. So we can't use that. There is no other, it's basically a write-off, in this area.
Once you accept someone on Medicaid, you can't balance bill.
Okay. That's a good clarification.
That's a good way of putting it. That's simple, and that is very true. That's very true.
Any more questions? Like I guess to say you provide especially valuable service to, because most of the individuals, many of them would then be in the county nursing home where they would, and not that they don't do their best to provide a good quality of life for people, but your clients are much happier and at a much lower cost being where they are achieving your services.
Yeah, and I just, myself and my staff, we are trying to figure out how to get this right so that it's all situated for us when we get to that point, and that's where we want to be, is at home, being taken care of it at home for sure.
Okay, great. Thank you very much for the stuff. So
thank you for your consideration. Appreciate it.
see our Register of Deeds is here.
Good morning, everyone.
Yeah,
Sorry, I apologize. I didn't realize you were running.
well, I usually, as legislators pretty well, especially being the daughter of a long time legislator. This is like extremely bizarre.
That's great. Thank you.
I feel like I must have forgotten something if we're actually like half an hour ahead of schedule.
It's fine. I apologize. I think that happened earlier.
No, it's
Hope
good.
everyone's doing well.
Yep.
So, with regard to our budget, we are down with regard to documents that have been brought in. So that's reflected in the amount that I put down for data processing.
Yeah.
So that's what the main reduction is, because our reduction in our budget from last year is roughly about $18,000 roughly. And most of that, about over 10,000 is for that data processing, because our documents are reduced, and I don't anticipate that they're going to go up this year, and they'll probably even go down further than what I budgeted for. But I think that's a safe number. Then I put down about 20,500 roughly. Even in 2022, we just were a little over 19. So if you average the last couple of years or so, then I'm still with the 20,500. I'm still much lower, but I may have been a little optimistic with even that number, I think. So that is where the main thing, where that really was reduced, was for that data processing. Also, when I first started, I guess I'm starting my 5th term, we had 7 full-time staff members. Since then, we've had, 2 of them go well, actually, cut to the chase. One is now part-time and one position's eliminated.
Yeah.
So now we have 5.5 positions for, I'm gonna try to keep that for this year if we can, if there's any way we can do that. The thing is, even if we have less documents coming in, the staff still has a lot of work to do. And we still have to maintain the office, obviously.
Yeah.
And we have staff that's been there for 20+ years. I mean, we do have a new staff member this year, but after her, the newest one has been there for 20+ years.
Yeah.
So they do have vacation time and they have, more vacation time accrued. So we have to make sure that we have enough staff to be able to man the office and do what needs to be done. But I've been able to reduce that somewhat, and I'm hoping I can keep it at that, but there's I think for halfway through the year, we budget to maybe be able to add someone maybe halfway through the year if we need that. With regard to, everything else is really pretty much the same. I went down a little bit on the office supplies, it's only $100, but then the problem is, even though some of the town has come down with the documents, the prices have gone up,
Yes.
So I'm trying to keep it as the same as much as, as was the last few years, so it really, so we've gone down, but I don't know what, our books, also for restoration, I know that's always a question that everyone has here, is that the prices on restoring and preserving the books have gone up. And so this past year, we've only been able to do 7 books. This coming year, with 7 books, with the estimate that I have, would be $31,000 for 7 books. I did a budget for 30, but I'm hoping that, we'll have other areas where I can kind of use that extra, which we should, to be able to at least get another 7 books. Once we do that, then we'll have 150 books left to, we still have 150 books to do. So if I can get 7 books done, they'll have 143 books left. I'm hoping maybe in the coming years that we can do something as maybe a capital, something that we can get a bunch of them done together. Maybe we can get a better price that way. But for this coming year, that's the goal, is to at least get those 7 books done. And slowly but surely, we're just plugging away at that.
Your goal, Kathy, is to pick the worst 7, right?
Yes, yeah, that's always been our goal, is to get the worst 7. Although sometimes the worst 7, it's not always the worst 7 out of the 10 that we've had reviewed. Because sometimes if that were the case, then I may only be able to get 4 done. You know what I mean? So we get the worst 7 to have the co-file review them for that year. And then I kind of try to work the money so that, okay, we'll get those as many as we can done out of those 10. Yes.
It's not necessarily the oldest 10, because sometimes.
Right, sometimes there are books that are in worse shape that are newer, and our goal is that to only go back to, obviously, to when they stop the handwriting.
Yeah.
So that's the goal. It's like when they start typing, then we're all set.
Have you ever attempt to transcribe the handwritten ones, or is that?
You mean, scanner?
Anybody trying to transcribe the handwritten ones? I guess that would.
No, they
Yeah.
just, no.
That'd be really expensive.
We can do
Yeah,
that for vital records, but that's a little bit different.
Yeah,
That's
it's a little
tedious.
bit. I mean, I think we're doing great because we've scanned a lot of them. They're back to 1800s, and then the ones that, no, they're not indexed that far back, but we have the old indexes in our search engine. So you can actually go back to those old indexes. It's time consuming, but it's the same thing you'd have to do if you were in our office, so, and that would be a lot to get all those indexes, put into our system right now. That's probably not
People doing
gonna
vital
happen.
records, that's because of the Mormons, others trying to create
Oh, yes.
databases. Not quite
Oh,
the
I've
same
heard that some of them are in ancestry.com that is not, yeah.
So, is this the sort of thing one could conceivably get grant funding to help with?
Not for that kind of project that I've been able to see. I mean, I've thought about the Moose Grant and but I have not wanted to step on the toes of what they've done.
Other part of the county.
Other part
that
of the
uses
county,
split grant,
because
right.
they've used it for that, and
Right.
I think they're getting close to being at the end. I was talking to Glenn. So I may be able to do that so we can get some more books done as far as just, but they're not gonna cover very much of it, you know,
Right.
that's.
I was thinking, maybe there's some sort of historical society or,
Right.
some that would be interested in funding this sort of thing.
Yeah. Other than the Moose Grant, I don't know. I've looked a little bit, but nothing that would take on that kind of amount of, funding, I don't think. But, I will keep searching because always something, I am very interested in them. I mean, I was a history major at UNH before I went to law school. I love it. I just love it, from a personal standpoint. So, I just, it's good to see them get done. It's nice to see them come in and get all, and that is the history of our county. I mean, that is the history that's there is just, it's incredible. So to have those restored, I think is a really vital, and it's vital.
Okay, next, any question, Representative Kaczynski?
I could just answer it, but you're restoring them, they're not creating new books or.
What they do, it's an interesting process. I've always wanted to go up there, but from what I've heard, I want to go up and watch them do it sometime. But they take each page individually and they use, I know it's like a chemical bath, I think, for a lot of it, and they restore them. There's a lot of tape sometimes, old tape that's covering some of the wording. So that is able then to lift that tape and you can actually then see the wording underneath, which is incredible. And they look at each page and they restore each page as well as they can and preserve it and then put it in a seal, and then put it in a new book. So usually every book that you send out will come back as two bound books. It's the same book, it's divided into two. You know what I mean?
Is it also done electronically?
Yes. Yeah, so we do that. We've taken on that, and that is very slow going. We've looked into hiring someone to do that, but we'll get thousands and thousands of dollars to go back and do that. So we are just slowly, a staff member and I, trying to scan the books when we have a chance. So we've got we're back to I think book 90 something. So yeah, book 90. So we still only have like about 90 books left to do, which is very time consuming.
I take it, Kathy, you just, if you look at the revenue from the deeds department, it's not, the revenue that's projected doesn't come in 1/12 every month. Obviously you have the busy months of summer and December. So if I'm correct in what you've explained to me is that you use the slower times of January, February.
Yes.
And to do that scanning, because you don't have the time when things
No,
are
we don't
really
have time to do
busy.
that. And quite honestly, even in those slower months, we still don't have a lot of time to do the scanning because we are on the phone a lot with people, even though they're not coming into the office. We're helping them search online. We have a lot of electronically filed documents. And it's just, and with, less staff, so we do our best to try to get those scanned. I'm hoping they'll at least get 10 books scanned this year. I think maybe we need to do a little more, but.
Kaczynski has another question.
And another line, you were saying you had trouble covering the office because people were older and had a lot of vacation time. Just out of curiosity, what kind of, how many weeks vacation do you get?
I would have to check with the human resources, to be honest, off the top of my head. I don't want to be incorrect.
For 20 years.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So
So it's, it starts as 2 and then it moves up to 3 and then to 4.
and I'm not saying that we're having a lot of difficulty with that. I don't mean to give the wrong impression. I'm just saying if it's less than what we have now, we're kind of working okay right now, and I'm hoping that it will continue that way. But for example, we had someone else also out because they had surgery, so they were out because of FMLA. So you have things like that come into play too. So that's why it's important to at least keep the number that we have now is what I'm saying, we're doing very well. The staff is amazing. They're great. They have a lot of knowledge. And we're very fortunate to have staff that are so committed and have so much knowledge. And so that's wonderful. So that we're very fortunate.
Oh, Reverend Jeffrey Rich.
Yeah, so questions, how far back do we have, paper? Did we go back to 1623 or?
Okay, so we have paper back to 1773. And it's really fascinating because we have documents from, signed by Thomas Jefferson, Secretary of State Madison. We have, amazing documents. So I always have those copied when we have the high school students come in. I get really excited about it, showing it to them, and I don't know.
Don't know they share your excitement.
But I'm like, this is amazing, it's great. So we have some great and, just wonderful. Yeah, and anyone who would like to come in, I just really enjoy going through the books. So if any of you are ever interested in coming in and just seeing how our process works, looking at the books, I can show you how to do the searches. I just think it's very interesting.
I just have an ancestor that was here in the 1620s, and the way that we know, there was a sailboat, there was a sail of a boat with the name of my ancestors that were on it, but that's would be 400 years ago, and I didn't know if that would.
It would be in Rockingham
Yeah.
County, probably.
Yeah.
So Rockingham County would probably have those documents. They would have them, because they go back that far. That's the, so we have one too that, it was so interesting. I talked to high school students about that. We have one with a Captain Amos Cogswell. It's kind of a side issue, but he actually served under George Washington and captured Hessian troops. And as a result of that, he was paid 300 acres of land in the Ohio River Valley in a very fertile area. But we have it recorded here in Stratford County because obviously the West hadn't been settled and this is where he lived. So, I'm going through some of these documents, that's just an example of the history. But if you're interested, I'm sure you could find your ancestry in Rockingham County. You could look at those records, yeah. Any questions that?
Oh, the documents, and this is a pretty, not a very brilliant, this is something that probably doesn't shock any of us, but basically real estate prices are staying high, which is, well, not necessarily good for those buying it, but it's good for your office, but the volume of sales is going
The
down.
volume of sales going down, and the residential market is really at a standstill.
Yeah.
It's worrisome to me as far as our office is concerned. But we have hope. Hopefully it'll turn around. So we have hope, but that it is a worry but we are a service, and we've been fortunate that we've been able, that it's done very well as far as revenue, but it's something that we have to have in place regardless of what,
We did help you by the House killed the bill just this week, which was would have restricted sales of single family homes basically to natural persons. That would have been a lot more work for you folks.
And there was another I think landlord, I think that was another one too, that was concerning a little bit.
Great, we'll see no more questions. Good to see you
Thank
again.
you.
So,
Nice to see everyone. A good weekend.
hopefully the volume of sales will pick up.
We can only hope. Have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you. Gotten to the, I guess that's the last of all the witnesses under that.
Well, Mr. Chairman, our new director of maintenance is here. Jim Gunny was our director of maintenance for 30 years, retired. Does a little bit of some things for us, so I didn't know if it would be okay if we switched to J&A maintenance.
Yeah, sure, that's fine.
And that way he could be excused.
Anybody need to take a break or should we press on? I know Brendan, Rebecca, you believe what time was it? You told me? 1140, and so that's the. And even though we don't necessarily need a forum for the vote, it's better if we have one, so it's.
We'll move as quickly as we can. On J&A maintenance, Mr. Chairman, it appears that you have a $72,000 increase. However, what you would find is, it's a movement of maintenance staff from, Riverside, which has about a $40,000 decrease in maintenance staff, because we've moved, this building's become older now, and we need more help in this building than we have in the past, and we've moved that person from Riverside to here. So that's a piece of this. Also, you'll notice that, in order to maintain, we, go out to bid or go out for the services of cleaning of this building. And, we'd had historically been, pretty much level funded in that service. And that has increased, with the lowest bid of being a $16,651 increase. It's the best bid we could get, and certainly less expensive than what it would cost us if we had our own staff. We hired our own staff like we used to 20 years ago.
Yes. For sure.
If you could ever find your own staff to do it.
And your contractors you're working with are all probably competing for the same workers as the social service agents.
Exactly. You know, and we really haven't had any concerns or complaints. So I know it went up, but we were happy to have that. You know, we were happy to maintain the same company.
Yeah.
Even though the increase, it was still the least expensive.
And that's just replacement here, maybe get it.
My name is Douglas Kane. I'm the new director of maintenance for Stratford County.
Okay, cool. Oh, you're.
So Doug is
Thank you.
does the whole county. You know, manages the operations of the maintenance of the whole county. So, you know, we have one director of maintenance.
Okay, notice that the request for electricity supply is actually decreased. How's that work?
Well, we're on a bid, so we're at 7 cents right now. And we're locked in for another year, so the reduction is actually based on less usage as opposed to, so there's no price adjustment.
Okay.
Which is certainly a salvation for us, because we all know what our electric rates have been.
We also had an LED conversion for the full facility at Riverside, and that's made a substantial decrease in the demand.
Okay, so you've achieved that decrease in demand through actively pursuing efficiency.
Correct.
And you know, that LED conversion was, we chose like a 3-year payback for that. So, you know, we're still saving money, but we're paying some out of our savings for some of those costs that weren't covered by Eversource. And we actually got a little bit of extra service from Eversource because they had some money left over and asked us if we wanted to finish the conversion. Otherwise, we would have had to have waited until the next year, you know, for the money to become available again. But for whatever reason, it didn't cost out like they thought it was going to someplace else. So they said, hey, you know, we've already started in your place. Do you want us to keep going? Because they knew we were going to apply for it next year. We said, sure.
There's a variety of contracts you have with various people, just the maintenance, like the elevator and life safety and so forth.
Yeah, so some of those contracts are mandatory. In other words, they're, you know, we obviously can't get a license for the elevator without a licensed someone to inspect it. You know, we can't do it ourselves, and we obviously need a license to run it. So the items that you see as a purchase service are items that we don't either it's not worth it for us to hire or train somebody solely for that service. It's less expensive for us to purchase that service on the outside because we don't use a lot of it.
We paid the city of Dover for our fire hydrants, so.
Yes, we do. Dover's actually really reasonable to work with.
Yeah.
You know, they're actually a good situation for us. But, you know, there is some things that it's not worth fighting about.
Yeah.
You know, our taxes that Dover charges us for, you know, some obscure parcels of land, unassociated with the actual complex. I see what other counties have for arrangements with the municipalities for which they're in, and I'm not tempting Dover to look elsewhere.
Very expensive to move the county seat.
Yeah, well, I'm not, you know, as far as I'm concerned, I don't know anything about those other counties.
Yeah.
You know, that's just up to them.
Like Hillsborough, which has 2 county seats, neither of which have, and the county government mostly housed in Goffstown, which is neither of the county seats. And then, so I covered that, so what do you want to talk about next?
Well, I thought, Mr. Chairman, while Dougie continues to be here, there's some capital items.
Yeah, sure. That's good.
Could you go over those, Doug?
One of the items is a replacement for a low blower for the parking lot. It has failed several times in the past couple of years, the most inopportune time. But we want to provide a safe, clean parking area and entryway to the building on time, because people start showing up 5:30, 6 a.m. So that's a very important piece of the puzzle. Excuse me for one more.
I'll read them to you, Doug, because you'll know them off the top of your head. The paving and repairs to damaged and missing areas in the courthouse parking lot.
Yes, part of the contract for the court with the state is that the state sends a surveyor here to the property annually, and they are meticulous about their inspections. We have had to alter the height of handicap signs before, so it's important that those sort of items that we've had in the past get taken care of.
Yes, of course.
There is and they do pay us well in excess of $500,000 a year in rent. So, you know, if we can keep them happy, it's in our best interest. And we don't want them to consider building a Stratford County Superior Courthouse in some other location in the county. That, you know, because what would we do with this building? So
We also have a capital request for countertop replacement in the Registry of Deeds office. If I could paint a mental picture for you, they're dangerous, they're cracked, they're 40-year-old laminate. They've been repaired with tape and so forth, and it's a high traffic area. So it's really a safety concern of us. We thought it was important to select local contractors who are with rocks to give us the bid on that. Restriping of the courthouse lot and repainting the curbs, also that is part of the contract with the port to occupy the building. We need to have all of that maintained. So we have some heating valves in the building that are experiencing, let's say, incontinence, leaking, and we need to get those replaced before we have a failure in there. Let's see, I believe that's it.
well, we have I think that's it for the courthouse, and then we have the HVAC mixing valves in units G and H at the
That's what they do.
at the House of Correction. And then we have the replacing of the existing walk-in freezer at the House of Correction, and I know that's because we can't maintain temperature.
Right, yeah, the structure itself is okay. The actual mechanical part of the refrigeration is not able to maintain the FDA recommended 0 degrees. It's routinely way above that. All right, and we tried to run it full time and freeze this up, but to get the proper equipment in there is what we're gonna do. And
The last one is to replace, some of the toilets with stainless steel units.
sometime in the past, to save money, the purchase of porcelain toilets was done. These are a serious safety concern because they can be broken, they produce jagged edges and it's a cause of correction. So as they become broken, we've been replacing those one at a time in this case.
That sounds very important. It's probably something
Yeah, critical, yeah.
I think pretty important to the inmates too. They're stuck there all the time. Bad enough being there, but it's your. All sounds pretty routine to me, so.
And none of this is all paid cash, none of this is bonded. It was already reviewed by the, committee that reviews the manner in which we purchase these items, and they specifically approved the capital piece.
Any questions on those? Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Looks very good, even though it's not necessarily.
I've inherited a building that has been well maintained. It's a sound building, it was built. And I'm thankful that that's the case.
Like that, many buildings here are, in fact, it's now gotten old enough, it's now a historical site.
Thanks, sure. It's a beautiful building. I love it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, then we'll be done with the,
If you wanted to go back to the original schedule, Mr. Chairman, that would be administration.
all right, sure, get the end of that yet, so.
Actually, the largest changes there are the salary increases that were voted for the elected officials and by the last delegation. That accounts for about, when you count the roll-up benefits, probably around $4,500. And the other part is the increase that we've had in the cost of office supplies. This is the department that issues like all the W-2s, all the 1099s, as well as all of these copies that you have.
Yes.
So all the copies of things like in budget preparation is all done out of the commissioner's office.
So, is it possible to,
Thank you, go ahead, yeah.
is it possible to, move more of that stuff to an electronic format rather than doing it all on paper?
We'd love to, but the statute doesn't allow for it. In other words, we'd love to just send you all this stuff electronically like we do now. But we also, by statute, have to follow it up with the paper.
Okay, so,
Nothing would make us happier than a statutory change that would allow us. But in fairness to speaking globally about the representatives, if that leads you to have to print it out, then I'm not sure that is of value.
Yeah.
Simply because we can print it out a lot cheaper than you can because of the volume of printing that we do. But in terms of easier for us, easier for Janet, who puts all of this stuff together, the easiest way to do it would be for us just to email it to you, but the statute doesn't allow for it.
right, so,
I was speaking myself, I printed it out, but then I ended up using, I think, a couple of your copies that Janet printed out too. It was like, but I forgot that I got mixed up because the order they're in my printout wasn't the same as the order which we're talking about.
We do our own annual report. We used to send that out, but we do it in-house now. We find it to be less expensive using our own copier and we have all the documents anyway. So all we were doing, and I'm talking 15, 20 years ago, all we were doing is sending out the documents. And then getting a book back, we can do it ourselves.
Right.
And we, as you know, we print our own budgets that these books are all done internally
Right.
and all done by this department. So there's certain things that we print that we wish we didn't have to, but are required by law.
Okay, so, would you be interested in sending me the RSA on that?
Sure, happy to.
And what, maybe not right now, but maybe like next, come summer, or come August or so, so that, maybe we could put in a bill that would, create more flexibility there.
Sure.
Because I'm just looking at this stack of paper and I think, I'm not gonna use this paper for very much in the future.
I understand it. I understand completely.
Got my files in somewhere. And we had we killed the bill that Concord that would have eliminated the county, all the duties of the county delegation and handed them, combined all the county commissioners, but I don't know whether
We didn't submit that bill.
Yeah, but that, it was met with extreme lack of enthusiasm. I happened to be one of the people who got up and went to testify against it. And, okay, so that Richard's budget refined and then our own budget.
And we did the registered deeds.
Yeah.
So the next one would be the Portchester Cafe. As you can see, it's in a little bit of disrepair right now, simply because it is an integral part of the enhancement in the airflow in this building, which, as you know, we're covering with ARPA funds.
Yeah.
You remember reading in the paper, we were the last courthouse to reopen. Yes, we met minimum requirements, but the court wasn't really happy and did, so therefore, when COVID was going on, we were the last of the county courthouses to open, for actual trials and general operations. So we used about $4 million of our opera funds to, we bid it out, and that was the best bid. A lot of that, or some of that has to do with the cafeteria. We managed to keep it open, but not, in the way in which we wanted to. The second thing is, it's an integral part of our relationship with the court.
Yeah.
Because the cafeteria produces meals for juries. And yes, the state pays us for those meals, but the most important thing is the convenience that we provide to the state. As a vendor here, or because there's no real easy place for them to make arrangements to pick up meals. So to have them here, we get the meals in the morning, they're prepared, we send them up with a bailiff. And they, the jury has a meal, and it doesn't substantially interrupt the amount of time that a trial has to take a break for food. Probably costs them at least another half an hour or more if somebody had to go get it and bring it back and those things. So it's a part of it is our goal is to break even. Doesn't always happen. Certainly won't happen this year with the, not having the full cafeteria open. We'd like it to, and most of the times it does. Break even, maybe loses a little money, maybe makes a little money. And the main thing here is the increase in cost in food, which I think we all see when we go.
The revenue subcommittee, they're able to recover them with higher costs.
Yeah, we haven't, I'll be honest with you, I haven't looked at raising the costs, this year. I don't want to drive clients away, and, some will go somewhere else simply, the convenience only goes so far.
Yeah.
You know, and so I've been trying to be a little careful. You know, about the costs, you know, that we're charging people.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it, if it's a jury trial, we increase costs, it just increases the state's cost. So, you know, one taxpayer or another, but if we can break even, that makes me very happy.
Talking about feeding juries, I mean, that's mostly the trial juries, but I happen to have a relative appointed to the Trafford County grand jury, so that you ever have to feed the grand jurors?
Yes, we do. Yeah, if presuming the grand jury session runs, you know, through lunch, you know, in other words, after, which it usually does, then we provide the grand jury with lunch also.
It's been an interesting experience. It's an interesting.
I imagine they've heard things in that grand jury that they'll never want to hear again.
Yes, and they're probably glad they're not allowed to tell people about it.
That's exactly true.
And they tried to call me, Reverend Wall, for jury duty, but being in the House Judiciary Committee, apparently grants us an exemption.
Because of my supervision of the House Correction, I've been granted a permanent no jury.
Yeah. Right, I'm the chairman, I should know.
The next is debt accounts. I'm not sure there's a whole lot we can do about that. These are debts that have been, in terms of the bonded debts, these are debts that were voted in by prior delegations. We really haven't had any recent bonding, except the $6 million bond that was passed. We haven't floated that bond yet. There's really no reason for us to do that. We are still confident, right, Tori, that we're gonna get that $15 million from the governor's fund, where he made $15 million available. You know, we have every confidence that we're gonna get that $15 million, which will make it simpler for us, and we won't have to bond that $6 million.
And the temporary loans, that's revenue anticipation loans, or?
Yes, no, you know, gone up quite a bit, but still the interest rate. And that's based on our first round of borrowing, which we did in the executive committee approved at their November meeting, and we did sometime in December and received the funds in January. And that's the bulk of our borrowing. We will borrow again in the summer.
Yeah.
Because you can only borrow the money that you're projected to spend in 6 months.
Yes. Fiscal years out of sync with state fiscal year, but to fix that, we'd have to have an 18-month year, and that's what.
Well, the problem with changing that is you'd have to have a 50% tax increase. Because you'd have to collect for the other 6 months.
Yeah. The interest rate is fairly reasonable, if I recall anyways.
Yeah, yes.
And
There's actually 2.39%.
following along here, there's health and general insurances for KAA Riverside.
So for the 2 years prior, we had a 2% decrease each year in our cost of our health insurance. This year, they wanted an 18% increase. We negotiated it down to 9%. So if you think about it, over the last 3 years, if you just do the math, it's basically a 5% increase over 3 years. But the 9% of it hit us this year because we had reductions in the last two. Plans have not changed. Employees still contribute approximately 20%.
Seems to leave other accounts, county convention, employee appreciation, tuition, assistance and contingency fund. Is that all?
I did I'm checking things off. Yes. I upped the convention a little bit with the anticipation of calling the convention back to brief them on progress on what's been approved for the building site for the possible or potential Riverside replacement. So I know there's going to be some additional meetings. We don't have anything to report right now because, of course, when it was approved, we were in the middle of winter. So having you know, any kind of significant amount of work done on the site is pretty tough in the, you know, in the middle of winter.
Insofar as we've had a winter this year, but everything Kaczynski's got, but
Yeah, that amount of money we approved, you said it was 6.2 million,
Yes, sir.
that hasn't all been expended.
None of it has to this point.
Is there a contract
Yes, sir.
for all of it?
Yes, sir.
To one party.
Yes, sir. We went out to bid. It's Warren Street that
Same
received the bid.
people that were pushing.
Yes, sir.
I understand, in my mind, I was understanding that it would be expended in bits and pieces for different borings or different.
Absolutely true. Warren Street's the kind of like the general contractor, and they have probably 8 or 10 various subcontractors that will do pieces of that work. And then Warren Street will put together the final product, including the design. And I know we're way down the road. I mean, we're 18, 20, 22 months down the road. And Warren Street will be responsible for drawing the final plans. That's who won the bid. I supplied all that. I'm happy to supply the stuff again, but I supplied about 400 pages of documents to Representative Newton that went over all of those things, including how the 6 million was spent or how it was contracted for. None of it's been spent. I'm happy to supply it again, or you could ask Representative Newton to share those documents with you if you wanted to save some trees, because like I said, it's probably 400 pages.
Well, that's when we were talking about electronics, I had a conversation with him and I guess some of these documents weren't online. We thought they were all.
We don't have any documents at all, that we've received from, we don't have any documents at all that we've received from Warren Street. We've talked to them, but we don't have any reports of anything. As soon as we have those reports, you know, we'll post them and share them.
It's just a little troubling to me, I think, where this has been kind of one choice has been made here on the design of that home. And the company's doing it. It's, I expect a little more variety in this.
There's,
I guess, than what we get offered as a result.
here, there's no design. There's no design that's been determined.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a design offered and the delegation, as you know, was not in favor of that. So what we're doing now is simply looking at the soil, the soil, can it support the building? We're looking at the possibility of geothermal heating. Is that available based on test borings? We're looking at nature conservancy. You know, are we going to be clear with the Historic Society? Those types of preliminary things. When it comes to some form of actual design, the proposal is going to be that we reach out to Chairman Schmidt. He appoints a committee, and that committee works with and works with helping to put a design together. So we're nowhere near a design.
It just seems like 6.2 million is a lot. You know, to check with the conservancy or something, that doesn't seem like those are big expenses.
Well,
They're to help prepare the construction documents so we can go out to bid.
yeah,
The
they had
construction manager.
they all had
It's an 18-month contract.
So, but when we go to put together some kind of actual design of a building, we'd have a committee put together, made up of members of the delegation and members of the public, so there's been no design that's finalized. The cost of creating a design is part of that $6.2 million, but no design has been determined.
Yeah, that was just a general concept that we.
Well, no, I mean, it's a specific it's a specific contract, that, you know, we had available the night of the delegation meeting. And I'd be happy to share that breakdown with you, Representative Kaczynski. I have that readily available. It's one. And in terms of Warren Street's involvement, they were the successful bidder. We had 5 bidders and they were the most experienced and economically feasible bidder. You know, they've done stuff at Rockingham, at Merrimack, at Sullivan, in terms of nursing homes. So they had the most experience. And their numbers were better or equal to other competitors.
This bid was after we approved the 6.3.
No, this bid was before. Yeah, the bid was before. If you remember in May of 2021, I'm sorry, 2022, you all in the delegation approved like a feasibility plan for $60,000. That's when we went out to bid. But we did it as an all-encompassing bid, not just for that, but for anything that might develop after that feasibility study was reviewed. So we've simply continued with Warren Street. Part of that is the $60,000 we get credited back.
I don't remember a fiscal note on that.
Sure, I'll be happy to provide you the delegation minutes. If you would, Janet, of that May meeting. In fact, there was a question at a subsequent executive committee meeting by Representative Harrington as to exactly where that was going to be paid out of, you know, what section of the budget. I'd be happy to provide you those minutes too.
And of course, whatever new building, obviously standards are different, but also like the new building, although actually, of course, I actually knew the architect who built it, and he did a good job, but he was, building to not only just the standards are lower, but he actually really close to what the minimum standard was. And we're hoping to build something a little bit better than that. So,
well, I mean, I guess that's all going to be determined, by the committee.
Yeah.
And recommended to the commissioners.
And see, Miranda's been sitting here patiently. I don't know if you have any.
I'm more of a learning experience.
Okay,
for myself.
All right, that's fine. Maybe
Someday I'll be retiring and I think
somebody, I guess you would be, yes. So what else?
I think that was the last, I've been kind of checking things off as we go, and I think that was the last time.
County delegations over budget. I guess that's because of the extra, we have more meetings than usual, thanks to the.
Well, partly because of the nursing home and partly because of the orientation meeting.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, when you selected chairman and subcommittee, which happens every other year, not every year. So that's why, it's a little bit overspent.
We got that all out the way. Okay, and actually $25 a meeting, that's actually specified by statute, if I recall.
I don't know the status of the bill, but there is a bill to change that amount to a higher amount. I don't know the status of that bill, but I saw that it was proposed. I don't know what happened to it.
I don't know either. I'm definitely in favor of keeping the county delegations, which I think everybody was in favor of that except the sponsor of that one particular bill. I forget whether we killed it last week or whether it's going down the plane, whether it's on next week's calendar.
I believe that the 25 is actually a cap.
Okay.
And that county delegations could vote themselves lower compensation if they so chose.
All right. Okay, I guess we actually. So I guess it sounds like we've covered we've covered everything that's together. And if anybody's anything we need to lower or raise, I mean, I would entertain a motion to accept the commissioners recommendations as is. And so moved. There's a second. Second by Cecilia Rich. And this will then be passed on to the executive council and then the full committee's meeting. So you might want to remind us of just in case, I know we got ample notice of it, but those two meetings are coming up, so like, remind us of those times and dates.
March. It's actually should be right there, March
It
3rd.
is, yeah.
Yeah, it's
And
right.
March 15th.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Okay. And we have snow dates for each one, just in case.
There still might be some snow.
Well, you know, when we had to put the ads in the newspaper, we thought that, you know, we might have more snow than we have right now. So,
Sometimes when it's warm, you get a lot more snow.
yeah.
Sometimes you get more snow, there's more. It was a good year for the snow blower to break down, I think. So,
They say there won't be any for the rest of this month.
okay,
I
so,
we never trust this.
so I guess the clerk will call the roll, so they.
60,
All right.
Oregon,
Aye.
Kaczynski,
Yes.
yes. Cecilia Rich, yes. Jeffrey Rich,
Yes.
unanimous.
Well, we could have gone by without a quorum, but it's better to have a quorum. All right. Well, thanks everyone for your patience here and